Credit cards, incredible in our society, rampant solicitation. Here's a stat on, and this is 2 or 3 years old. College level, 88% of college graduates have credit card debt upon graduation. Did you hear that? Almost everybody has credit card debt. That's besides student loans. Our friends up in Sioux Falls a number of years ago, their daughter came home for the weekend, brought a friend with her. They were talking about credit cards, and they're both in Christian college in St. Paul. And the girl said, I have 7 credit cards. Wow, how do you keep up with the payments on those? She said, I don't make payments. I run it up to the max, and then I, fill out another application. 7 credit cards, never made a payment. Now, here's what it leads to. 19% of people who file for bankruptcy are college students. Incredible in our society that 1/5 of people starting out in life are a financial failure before they get out of college. Incredible. Incredible. Solicitation. Marketing to children. Mattel Toys had a little plastic cash register. And you could, put your things in you wanted to buy, and then they had a little credit card you would stick in the slot. Well, what was the training to these children? You stuck it in the slot, and guess what jumped up in the window? Approved. Of course, you can buy anything you want, with a credit card. Like the lady said, I love credit cards so much better than money. They go so much further. It's in our mind. Growth by MasterCard since 2006 had grown 800%. And I just read a stat this last week that within the year 2014, there were 39.6 million new credit cards issued to at-risk folks in our culture. Wow. Here are the reasons that people say, I need a credit card. I'll soften up here in a minute. Folks, don't feel so guilty. But I pay it off every month. 80% of the people who make that commitment one day see something they have to have, which they can't pay off in 30 days, and they fall back into monthly payments and high interest rates, etc. Secondly, it's a better way to keep records. It is a better way to keep records if you don't abuse it. Here's where Dave Ramsey and I disagree. Ray and I have had credit cards for years, decades. We pay them off every 30 days. Do you know what the credit card company calls us? The nice complimentary term, deadbeats. We keep the books for you, and you don't pay us a thing. Thank you very much, MasterCard, for doing that. It is a better way to keep records. They send it every month or online, and we pay it off. Yeah. Dave says, do not use a credit card. I disagree with him on that. You can use credit cards, it'll come up in a minute. If you know how to, use them to your advantage and not abuse them. It is a more secure way to purchase, especially online. We had a great discussion at the Sunday class on this. Some helpful people in there. It used to be that debit cards did not have the security of, for example, a fraud or somebody getting your number and using it. However, as somebody pointed out in class, really helped me with this, most, if not all, probably most, cash cards today, debit cards, are issued by Visa or MasterCard or maybe Discover Card or one of the majors. So you have the same guarantees today. If you have trouble with overspending because of credit, switch to a debit card, use that, you still get the same guarantee. For example, we got a call from the fraud department, we have credit cards, and somebody was up in Wisconsin going from Walmart to Walmart, taking our number and getting $300 cash cards. I think it was $1,200 or $1,500 before we got a call. But we didn't have any liability on it, and the same is true with debit cards. So credit cards are not an excuse because of security anymore. This one here, I want my children to learn to handle money, so I got them a credit card. You want to have your children learn to handle money? Give them money. Like, what? Wow. Okay, I want a credit card for the cash back or the rewards. 80% of rewards go unused. Now, part of it is a lot of them are airline cards. And they make it so difficult to use them. You know, it's only the second Tuesday of the third month after they see the groundhog. If it's not shining, the sun is not shining in northern Arkansas, then you can use it. So it's a game. But if you, again, use it properly, there could be a reason. But if you're paying off every 30 days. The bottom line, if a credit card allows you to purchase that which you cannot afford with cash, you need to stop using credit cards. You're a slave, period. Okay? So, sorry for that crash landing. But financial wisdom is what we're talking about. Car payment trap is huge in our society. Most people have a car payment for life, $495 for 64 months. That means some are longer, some are less than that. But the average car payment in our culture today is $495. If you did put it in savings with a modest 5% earning, at the end of time, your life, by the time you retire, 40 years, you would have over $1 million toward your retirement. So how can we get out of car payments? Help is on the way. Here's the escape plan. And you'll find this in the other financial courses. This is nothing novel here. But it's possible in our society. Keep your present car 3 years beyond the end of the car loan payments. Unless you buy from that Tulsa dealer and your installment loan is for 12 years. It probably is not going to last that long. But normally, with the cars we buy today, they last. When I first bought a car, it's 60,000 miles. It was junk. You could not rely on it. Today, that number's up to 120, 130, 140,000. You can easily drive for 3 more years for most people, unless you're over-the-road salesman. Secondly, during that time, that extra 3 years, continue to make the same payment into a car savings account. So you still make the $495 or the $387 or whatever it is. You don't stop and say, hey, we got the car paid off, now we can go buy whatever. No, you put it into a car savings account. Ray and I began to do that a number of decades ago. And about 3/4 of our married life, we have not had car payments. But it started when we were driving for a ministry that reimbursed us to use our own car and found out that you can run a car for half of what the reimbursement is. So the other half we put into a savings account, and with savings and a trade-in, we've been able to keep in cars, and I'll talk about our cars in a little bit here. Purchase all future cars previously owned, which is the euphemism for used. But used has such a negative term, I wouldn't want to run a used car, right? A previously owned car with cash from that point forward. That's basically what Ray and I do. You'll be able to buy a 2 to 3 year old, low mileage, dependable car that will meet your family needs. Lamar and I were at the Christian Stewardship Network in Tulsa a year ago, almost today. And there was a man there who described this process of buying cars in a very excellent way. He said, and by the way, there's a generosity conference, Christian Stewardship, and there's a mindset there that is moving toward don't look at the seen, look at the unseen, which I think is great for the church in our day. He described car buying this way. He said, there are 2 things that you can buy when you buy a car. One is transportation. Now, you can go out and for $10,000 to $14,000, you can buy reliable transportation. From there on, you're buying emotion. Now, in my carnal humor, I'm driving over here on 264 and went through Healing Springs, and down at the bottom of a hill where there's a very nice housing development up at the top was a luxury SUV 4-wheel drive that couldn't get up the hill. Okay, I smiled and went on in my little frumpy car. Okay, but you can buy transportation, and beyond that, you buy emotion. So how much do you want to spend on emotion? I'll say more about that in a moment. No, I'll say it right now. There is secular material that I have with me, and it's amazing what is being said out there today. What caught my eye, and it was in a list of articles, what middle income families can no longer afford in America. And it was 7 things on that, by the way. But one of them was a condensation of an article I'd seen a few days before that on only 17% of people, middle income people in America, can afford to buy a new car. Well, that's an amazing statistic, not good news for a car dealership. They surveyed people in 25 metropolitan areas. In 24, they took the median income of middle-income people, took the average car price, which is $32,436, $32,000 and change, put it against that income and said that only one city was there a medium income high enough for middle-income earners to afford a new car. Curious about what city? It wasn't Rogers. It was Washington, D.C. You're welcome, bureaucrats. You're the only ones that can afford to buy a car. Now, but then they said down below that, which to me is very interesting, because these are not Christian people. These are not people setting, car expense over against generosity. These are people who are just looking at it as pure financial budget existing as a middle-income family. The secular people said this: even if you can afford the payment for a $30,000 or $40,000 car, it does not make sense to buy that as your transportation and have it sit there and tie up that much of your family money. You hear what they're saying? They're not saying, no, give it to charity. They're saying it's, with all due respect, it's stupid to do that, to tie up that amount of money just in transportation. It's a poor decision making. Now, life is funny in at least my world, but in our country. While I'm reading the article on only 17% of people can afford a new car, up jumped an article, one of those pop-up advertisements on why I should buy a Jeep Renegade. I mean, that's the world. I'm reading about not buying it, but boom, there it was. Oh, one more thing about cars. A couple more things about cars. I hate bumper stickers. I don't put bumper stickers on my cars. But I was in California going from our home toward Oakland, about 45 minutes, a 10-lane freeway, and it's kind of like a Le Mans road course. You're trying to get out from behind the slow people and lane changing. And as I'm moving back and forth, up ahead, there's this old smoking car. It was a 60s vintage Volvo sedan, and it was poking along, slower. It should be on the shoulder, and I'm coming out. As I come up, and go by in the second lane, it's on the outside lane, I see a little bumper sticker, and here's what it said: "Don't let this car fool you. My treasures are in heaven." I go, that's a bumper sticker I could put on my car, though I hate them. And interestingly enough, for JBU people, I saw it on an old Toyota van over in the JBU parking lot, student parking lot recently. Now, you see my car, you'll see why it would qualify for that. But in the generosity movement, it's humorous to me. It's kind of a badge of honor to have an old car. Larry Burkett, one of the granddaddies of the Christian financial concepts, for quite a period of time, he drove a car with no reverse in it. And he always had to make sure that he could drive out somewhere. Okay, it's kind of a badge of honor. Howard Dayton, who did Crown Ministry and Compass, I think all of his cars are over 200,000 miles on it. And I rode again down to Wrightsville with a guy for the second time, and he bragged on the trip ago. He said, "I'm proud that all of my cars were made in the 3 cars that I own were all made in the last century." He's a 72-year-old guy who, hey, I am not what I drive. Though I've changed on that. I am what I drive. You look out in the parking lot, you'll know. No sticker on my car. Okay, mortgages. Only a 15-year loan. That is not what you will be offered. You'll be offered a 20, a 25, a 30-year loan, and that's how people get upside down in their houses, because they buy more than they can afford and then make extra principal payments. That has been Ray and our practice for years and years. If the payment was $800, we would send $1,000. And the banks go, what do we do with that? Apply it to the principal. They get the message after a while. We'll come to another principal in a moment. But make extra payments. We'll see Dave Ramsey and how he calculates it out here. If you buy a $130,000 home, put down $20,000, 7%, a little high for today. The difference is about $85,000 in going to a 15-year loan versus a 30-year loan. That's a nice gift that you could get for coming up with $250 a month, $256. Okay? It's a math issue. Time and interest is costly. When we look at retirement, we're going to see the other side of it. It's called compound interest. Let it be working for you. Borrowing for a mortgage, only a 50-year loan, make principal payments, and under good counsel. A few weeks ago, Lamar and I and a banker and a Christian financial counselor and another person were there, and we were talking about how singles can buy a home. And there was a young lady in there who said, this is on a Saturday at 1 o'clock, she said, at 3 o'clock, I have an appointment with the realtor. I'm just going to go and make a final decision on this house. And it's the house I want. It has a big backyard. And it's 8 minutes from work. And you go down all the list of why she needs those things. And we went through some caution things. And I asked Justin Rusanowski later, do you know this lady? Oh, yeah, he named her. I said, did she ever buy that house? No. Under good counsel, take someone with you when you're buying a house. Someone who's not emotionally hooked to it. They will see the cracks in the foundation. You're looking at the trees in the backyard or whatever. And obviously get a good inspection. That's another counselor to have there. So you don't get hooked. A guy who's a scientist friend of mine bought within the last 2 years a house at auction with the front bowed out. He never saw it. This is a brilliant guy who's worked on satellites and stuff. You need somebody else to look. Will not consume more than 25% of your household income. In that seminar we did 3-4 weeks ago, we had the banker there for one of our local banks, I will not name, and a friend of mine, and he said, banks will loan up to 45% of your payments will be 45%. That, again, is how you get into trouble. We recommend 25%. The normal bank number is like 33%, and that's pushing it. But they will loan up to 45%. Remember, banks, debt, not a tool for the consumer, but a way to make money. 25% is conservative. You'll not get in trouble with that probably. Early payoff privileges so that you're not penalized if you are disciplined, you make your extra payments, and you can pay it off early and have money free to do something else with, as Dave Ramsey and many others recommend. Okay, resolving your debt. We're going to move pretty quickly here. Accelerated repayment plan. List all your debts. That's the sheet we give you today. See how much you do owe. We've talked about the 1,000 emergency cash fund, so you're not in crisis. And here's the counterintuitive one. Comes from Dave Ramsey. Commit to paying off the smallest debt in record time. Intuitively, what we would choose to do is pay off the one with the highest interest rate. You'll often hear that recommendation. That is not as motivating as getting one totally paid for. Then taking the payment from that one, add it to the payment to the next smallest one. Pretty soon you're knocking those off pretty quickly. Pay off the smallest one first. Convert to cash only. We made a video that was shown here a couple years ago of a couple that got out of U of A. They had $120,000 in student debt. It was a OT and a PT. And within an 18-month period of time, they had eliminated that debt. The name are Denmans, and some of you may know them in this congregation. It took discipline, moved into an efficiency apartment, cash only, did not eat out, did not go to movies, were very, very conservative, but took the debt away because they were thinking of some of those things we talked about debt. It will bind up your future. Convert to cash only, etc. Produce extra income, have a garage sale, work overtime, take extra shifts, and remove all debt except your house mortgage in 24 to 30 months. That is a reasonable goal. The Denmans did it in 18 months, $120,000, 2 entry-level jobs. It can be done if we want to get rid of debt and not be a slave. And then commit to paying off your mortgage as early as possible. Use the money from the credit card payments, put on the mortgage. That's just good common sense. And be debt-free. The easiest path to financial freedom is being debt-free. And that's our goal, financial freedom and generosity. Your paycheck is your most valuable asset. Don't lose it to the creditors. Be in control of your money, telling it where to go rather than wondering where it went. Savings and investment are not that complicated, just difficult because of marketing and our wants list. Pushes us to buy more and more. Okay, here's a quick list of not recommendeds. Debt consolidation. That means I have 7 credit cards. I got an offer, put it all on one credit card and maybe a better interest rate, and it reduces to one payment, but it doesn't deal with a core issue. It just deals with a symptom of bookwork. If you are addicted to credit cards, you'll be addicted to the one that you still have open. That's why Dave Ramsey says cut them up. If you can't handle them, cut them up. Each type of bankruptcy, not recommended, well, I'll just go bankrupt and start over. Each type of bankruptcy is asking someone else to pay for your spending excesses. See what God says about it. You're asking someone to forgive part or all of your debt. And then be careful about receiving counsel, especially from non-Christian credit counseling agencies. They'll just say, well, just declare bankruptcy and then start over. You're never going to pay it off. We as God's people need to, think about what does God say and then trust him to help us. The wicked borrow and do not repay. It's called bankruptcy. But the righteous give generously. God said it, I didn't. But as honorable people, with our needs being met by God, to then live in excess and say somebody else pay for it, God does not see that as an honorable pathway. Now, I'm not totally hard-hearted. There can be some exceptions. One would be huge expenses, for example, a long medical journey with a spouse, and far beyond what insurance would cover and so forth, that would cripple the family financially going forward. There may be reason to go into debt, but still be open to God, how he will provide to honor his name, make every effort to repay. In the first church that I served in, there was a family business. It was a cold storage locker plant. Poor businessman. This couple was in our church. He just loved to sit at the coffee shop and talk with his buddies. And he died before his wife, who was a godly, godly woman. Spent a lot of her life taking in unwed mothers and so forth. And she had never worked in the business, but her husband died, left a huge debt. And to her credit, she said, we're not going to go bad on that debt. And she, and as a white-haired lady, went in and ran that business until the debt was paid off, and God honored that, and his name was not smeared for that Christian family in town. Co-signing, you know what that means. Your brother-in-law comes and says, hey, we need to buy this car, but, we need somebody else, one more signature on it, or we need to get in that house, we're having a baby, and you need one more bedroom, and we want to get moved in before the baby comes. But, Solomon, God's pretty straightforward. Do not be a man who strikes hands in pledge or puts up security for debts. If you lack the means to pay, your very bed will be snatched from under you. You know what that's saying? If they don't pay, guess who they're coming after? At second signature, because yours is worth more than theirs. Okay? And again, God said it. I didn't say this. One who has no sense shakes hands in pledge and puts up security for a neighbor. Pretty straightforward. 50% of all bank loans with co-signing end up being paid by the co-signer. 50%. Now here's the question. If the professionals at evaluating credit worthiness have said, these folks ain't going to pay, why would you think that they're going to pay? 50% the time you're going to pay, if it's a loan company, is 75% of people renege on their promise to pay. And as a co-signer, you are the one who gets to pay for nothing that you ever got or used. Okay, thank you. We have gone through fun and the downside of fun, debt because of our addictions, and then hopefully a few hints of getting out of debt